Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy. I'm very good. Very good. Got a busy week.
It's been a busy week. A week to review, I say. There we are. Welcome, everybody.
The new normal.
The new normal, yeah. Welcome, everybody, to the new normal, to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton Weekly Wrap-Up. This week we are wrapping up. We're going to be reviewing the London Market Claims Conference that was on Tuesday. We've tried to get a few highlights out there. It was actually a packed day, so it was a bit tricky to cut it down into 2 or 3 highlights, but we're going to have a go at that. But as always, to kick us off, we have the news. So I'm going to do this quickly, Ben, because we've got loads to go through today. Yep. But I spotted a clip, actually, that I think was today in insurance business. QBE on track for robotic milestone. And the reason I picked this out was because, firstly, it's in claims, and we'll get onto that in a moment, but also it's robotics and technology, which I do think is having a big impact. And as we talked about on the show before, I think this whole period of transformation and using digital to enable the work from home and all that kind of thing, I think is spurring people on. It's an interesting clip because it's in the claims space. So Mike East here, QB, just talking about how they're using it to deliver, as he says there, truly exceptional claim service. It's in the area of sort of looks like ethanol and collecting data and filling out initial forms and things like that. I think critically it says at the bottom there that it's not about replacing people with robots. It's about leveraging tech to free up resources to do, more value add work. And when I talk to people about this and vendors, to be fair, I think that conversation has definitely shifted. It's no longer about getting rid of FTEs or reducing costs. It is about customer service and just trying to improve that. I think so. That's pretty interesting. I thought for the news today.
I think for a long time, really, there's been a strong body of evidence that is what happens. Is that in the call center area, for example, I think it is what you do is you effectively make the people do the more interesting jobs, and that's always been the way with technology. It's interesting here that they're talking about motor personal injury claims, motor damage. So it's very much the kind of volume end of things, which is, I suppose, is what you'd expect. Also, that word robotics, I thought that had gone completely out of fashion.
Yeah,
but it seems to be coming back. Didn't we have AI now? And I can't help but think of actual robots, that do the hoovering and things like that.
Yeah, I know. Back to sort of tomorrow's world.
Tomorrow's world, exactly. That's whenever I hear that word robotics or robot, that's what I think. Obviously they're not, and it's put into inverted commas to make sure that we're not thinking it's a robot. But then don't use the word robot.
Yeah,
Software. But we'll see. It's a lot of talk, isn't it?
It is a lot of talk. So talking of talk, we took part. Well, I ran, and you took part in the London Market Claims Conference. As I was saying at the top of the show, there was loads to get into. So Ben, I've got a bit of a treat for you. You've not seen this yet, but I've condensed the whole day into a 30-second sort of promo. So turn your sound off and have a look at. I just try to get all the best bits into 30 seconds. It was quite tough, actually. It's
it's really good. Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah, it's good.
So what we have done in a bit more seriousness is put together a few clips that we think are interesting insights and takeaways from the conference. So we're going to play them now and then just talk about some of those key insights and what they might mean for the industry. So here's the first clip. It's from Sean Fisher, who's the CEO at the CII, and she was part of the keynote presentations. And in this clip, she's talking about the role of the customer, really, and what we need to be thinking about going forward. So here's the first clip now.
I always find it's good to start with a truism. So insurance has always made a huge contribution to people's lives and also to the wider economy. And this is something we must always be confident about and we are justifiably proud of. But I think a question we should ask ourselves is whether we do ask enough questions about how our customers see their relationship with the insurance market and what they expect to see when they need us. For the last 3 years, the CII has been producing a public trust index in conjunction with the Institute of Customer Service. And despite everything, if you think about all the change that's happened in the last 3 years, the core themes are actually holding remarkably steady. So when consumers are buying and holding an insurance policy, they particularly use the words confidence and relationship, by which they mean my insurer look after me and cares for me, not just for my policy. And with particular relevance to the claims experience, customers use the words control, speed, and respect, by which they mean, give me a say in the claims process, get me back on my feet quickly, and in particular, trust me and treat me in a human way. So how could these expectations that we've identified drive change? Clearly, what we need to be doing is putting the customer at the heart of the claims journey and being empathic and savvy about the way an insurance product works in practice. And we have to be realistic, of course, that this is all being expected against the backdrop of ongoing pressure on expense ratios and an ever-increasing demand from customers for speed and efficiency. So we do need to make automation a friend and not treat it as an enemy, and turn it to the aid of our age-old challenge with insurance products and the claim service that goes with them, which is ensuring relevance. As machines can help more and more with the routine aspects of what we do, we are actually freed up to do the things only people can do. This seems particularly exciting in the claims space because this is an area where there are perhaps the most opportunities to create new services that focus on people-oriented challenges. Just to take a couple of examples from recent observation, in the world of cyber insurance particularly, the focus has been increasingly on benefits that include reputation management, legal and regulatory advice, and crisis business management, rather than simply paying out a cash sum for a liability. The benefits are focused on reducing the loss by managing the risk, rather than only making a payment at the end of the day. And looking at the current issues around business interruption insurance, always easy to comment on these things with the benefit of hindsight, but let's posit that if products had included benefits perhaps around helping businesses to continue in a socially distanced world, maybe helping restaurants to switch to takeaways, or helping businesses to use the internet for their services rather than face-to-face, this could have helped the sector's response to the crisis.
So I think that was a really great introduction to the day. It touched on, as the news, it touched on technology, the role that's got to play. But I think at the center of it, and what came through the most strongly for me, was putting the customer at the heart of everything we do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a great talk. I think it was a real kind of leadership statement for the industry, actually, and I've not heard many of those, I have to say, delivered as well as that. So, you know, hats off to Sian for that talk. I was really pleased with it. I was pleased with it in a selfish way because, crikey, it does reflect a lot of stuff that I've been saying over the years. You could have taken it, almost plagiarized what I've been saying, customer front and center. I've even used, you know, we've even used some of their stats on this show to talk about those things. Yeah. You know, the idea that insurers should have your back and everything else, you know, these are kind of simple things to say, but they're, you know, when they come from people leading the industry, then they're really important, and we need more of this. You know, it's really crucial that you give you know, the confidence for businesses to go and actually do this stuff, you know. And it's quite a wide vision that she lays out when she talks about, you know, moving beyond just the standard insurance policy that pays out a sum of money into mitigation of risk, mitigation of claims, helping businesses to get back on their feet. I really think and agree that, you know, insurance has got that opportunity. It's a very big, well-funded business with huge balance sheets. If it could take the time and make the effort to really understand the businesses it serves, I think it would start to find there's all sorts of different ways. And to some extent, you keep the insurance contract business model at its core, but you extend beyond that. And so exploring where you can add value is going to be very interesting. Yeah, I think it was a really thought-provoking talk, actually. I'd love to see what their trust index is saying next time it comes out. I think she's probably prefacing it might have dropped quite a bit.
Yeah, I think so. Especially reflect back a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the AMIC report as well, and those metrics had gone south as well. And I just thought, you know, it was just a clear message. There was no, and I think you said it before, there was no, but we need to do this, or it's the customer, but, you know, it was just a simple statement, clear, and as you said, gave real leadership. So yeah, it was a really good start to the day. Hence the clip here.
Yeah,
I'm going to move on to the next session, which was looking at the future at Lloyd's. Obviously, it's got a massive role to play in the claims. Now it's almost solely focused on that area. So in this clip, I guess we've asked the question of the panel whether the future at Lloyd's is still relevant, and here's a couple of responses.
The third thing I'd offer, and I think, you know, against the challenges that we've faced as a market here on COVID, I genuinely think there's some learnings that will help the blueprint and the vision. What do I mean by that? Let's be very specific. If you go to the heart of the blueprint and the vision, built around a digital marketplace, built around the ability to trade and talk electronically, one of the things we need to find is the sweet spot, the balance between the technology and the human component. So the humology, if you like. So where does that exist? You know, where's the sweet spot? So we know that for certain transactions, certain claims, maybe certain types of business, digital will be very, very effective, very dominant. And there'll be other parts where we need to bring in a human component. And I think we'll see that this year, where we've been forced to work on a remote basis, we'll get some insights this year from where those sweet spots are and where that technology can be maximized, and where maybe we just need to make sure we get the calibration right and the balance right. So I think those are the three things, Jeremy. One, definitely still valid, absolutely, totally committed to delivery. I think it's reinforced the vision. I think there's some learnings, and I think the priorities have been adjusted to reflect the need. But I can see from the poll that there's a communication point that needs some work. And so I'll stop there. And so I haven't gone into the priorities because maybe Sheila or Lee wants to sort of add anything, of course, to those and around the edges as well. Thank you.
I think the collaboration that Phil mentioned earlier has been critical to where we've got to, both from we've all been impacted from COVID, both from a personal and professional perspective. and the collaboration with the market and Lloyd's has seen us pivot in the right way to understand the real business pressures that are out there at the moment, but also to keep the work going and focused in the right areas. So I think that's good. Obviously, one of the things that we need to look at and respond to is the community feeling like there's that collaboration, and the community may not feel like that at the moment, given the response to the poll around the communication and the engagement. So that collaboration needs to be felt across the community of stakeholders, throughout claims, throughout areas of operations, and with some of our partners and vendors that we work and operate with. So I think that's something that we all need to take away on the panel and look at what we can do within the programme and the work stream for claims. I think COVID has provided some positive outcomes for the future at Lloyd's, because I think it's sharpened people's attention around making the kind of digital marketplace and the technologies that are required to support it is real, and in what areas are we going to get the most bang for our buck and most value from that. And when you look at what we can do around interaction with our value chain and with our policyholders, from a data FNOL perspective through to making the right decisions within the process, some of which can be automated, and then how we can fast track payments. Those three areas can pretty much sum up the key life cycle points of a claim that matter to the customer and will see us making advanced decisions. And they're the areas that will absolutely be driven forward with some priority within the programme, and there's already had a degree of good thinking around. So I think COVID has helped us focus on that, but more than anything, I think COVID has taught us that we shouldn't be scared of change, and it doesn't hurt as much as we might fear it will. I think there's been a lot of change that's gone on around the market within central reform or otherwise, and we are slow on the uptake. We're slow on the uptake to adopt it. There's some fear around what the consequences may be, and there's a mindset there that kind of holds back. And I think the impact of COVID has seen that mindset has shifted. We need to adapt quicker. We need to adopt quicker. We don't need to be scared of it. The technology, the operations, the way we work, and how we take advantage of that are here to help us. They're not here to hinder us, and they're not here to replace us. And I think making that real within the key focus areas of the blueprint and claims is critical. And lastly, and the third point I wanted to make was just around how quickly we can now execute on some of what the market has probably promised in a number of centralised reforms over the years, and we're too quick to spend time in talking about what we should be doing and what the ideas look like, without actually bringing them to life. And one of the concerns there is that businesses are now looking to change quickly. They're looking to adapt their workforce quickly. They're looking to adopt the technologies and the skills that they need quickly. And if businesses advance quicker than the centre, then we are going to be out of step. And we're going to be in catch-up mode, and the catch-up mode will cause us cost issues, adoption issues, and could see us be in some way fragmented as a market, which is what we don't want, because us being united as a marketplace is what holds us in good stead around the service that we deliver. So just a kind of a word of caution there around, really coming together and making sure that we're not splintering off in different directions, but we need to do things in the centre to make sure that we're aligned and we're advancing as quick as we can.
So that was quite a long clip, but I thought I'd put it in there because it is critically important. And I think there was a few things in that. The speakers that you heard were Phil Godwin, who's the head of claims at Lloyd's, followed by Lee Elliston, who's the claims director at the LMA. And there's a few things to kind of think about in those two kind of responses to the question: is it still relevant And I suppose perhaps actually I should have rephrased the question: is it still relevant now in its current form? Because I think that document, The Future at Lloyd's, was written, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and you could argue that anything that was written 6 months ago, before February, is now out of date and needs looking at again. I think Phil, in fairness, did say they had reassessed it. I don't know how much of it has changed as part of that reassessment, but I think, and it came out in Lee's kind of closing points. It's now about action and not about talking, and we've been saying that for years at this conference, and we've been talking about this as well, Ben. But I think there were a couple of things where there's a lot of things to talk about in those couple of clips.
Yeah, there's So Lee's basically, to me, giving you the kind of EU Remain argument, which is that we need to have kind of institutional togetherness and collaboration, and that the centre will really manage things. And he rightly warns that there could be businesses that will just say we'll go off and do our own thing. And actually, I think that's the biggest risk. Actually, whether that's a risk is another question, because there are businesses in this market who now are global. I think that point was made as well in the keynote, that I think the idea of Lloyd's making its own space shuttle versus joining in with the rest of the world is a really interesting argument that plays into what was said here. There's some pressure, right? There's some pressure on Lloyd's now. You can tell from the discussion. You can tell from the reaction that we don't feel communicated with. We don't know what's going on particularly. So these, they make a very good point and case that they are going to move forward and there needs to be action. But as you and I know, when everybody in this claims conference talks about, there's been a lot of talk and no action. That's been the issue year in, year out. I think that, whether they do anything or whether they do something is key, but the word execution and getting on with something, I sort of wish they'd been able to say there is something coming up, one thing, settlements, just give everybody something to hold on to. But we're still talking in generalities, and that's my worry really about it. Yeah. And I just I laud their determination, but in the end, are we really now just going to have to accept we're in a world where the big boys will take this stuff on? It's not actually rocket science to set up a claims process globally for one of the big players, the Chubbs or the AXA XLs or the Aviva, the Alliances. They can do it.
And also, it's of strategic importance for those people because they're seeing that they need to have that consistent experience. As we've talked about many times, it's the experience that counts. It's not just it's not the promise. It's the experience of the promise that makes a difference to retention, loyalty, and profitability. Yeah. And for those businesses, it's critical.
And and the other point is who's had the experience through this pandemic? Well, it's the companies, it's the insurers. It's not particularly Lloyd's. Lloyd's has been still as their oversight, looking at various strategic issues, no doubt. But it's the people who had the boots on the ground are the insurers, and they will have learned a huge amount about that point that Lee makes about experiencing change and whether they get more productivity from doing it this way or that way. I mean, I know several of the big insurers are now investing in their own technologies and moving things forward. So it may already be, a lost cause. We may just now be saying we are going to head into a sort of, Brexit, no deal. We're all going to go off and do our own thing and let competition take its course. Does it have to be as regulated as it is the market? I don't know. I'm just saying that things do tend to take their course, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I think you touched on it, but the poll results, they were, I think they took them by surprise that so many people, needed so much more information. And it does beg the question about whether people just switch off when they see that, that communication, just because, like you say, the communication doesn't seem to match up with the what's actually happening. Where is the progress in reality, rather than just
no. And this is an interested audience that's on the inside. I mean, this is a very much a London Market Conference is an inside conference, isn't it? I mean, it's not particularly talking to the outside world. So if we can't even communicate internally with people and get some messages across, then I have to say it was worrying, that panel, and I hope they go away and start to say we've got to get on with something. I think Lee was saying that he's very passionate about it, and he wants things to change, and that's good. I do too. So I think they should move it forward somehow.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a good session. Really, really interesting.
Yeah, it was good.
Got another clip here actually from that session, just talking about I guess the future and perhaps the pace of change. So let's play that now.
I think what are the most important things, I think, in the changes. I think I'll be cheeky and say three things. One, I think it's the digital component, the data component. We have to get the bedrock right in the operational challenges. We've got to get that data spine, data foundation. Got to get that right, right down to the policy level, which we can step off from. So it's definitely around the data. I think the other piece, as Julian said, it's about culture. But I think the thing on there is it's worth blowing out or expanding culture. What does that really mean? Because we talk about it a lot, but it's about behaviour, it's about our ideas, and it's about our customs. And I think there's been some really good examples over the past 12 to 18 months where people are grabbing new ideas, saying, that would work in our market, that would work in my business, being bold and pushing through, despite some people saying, well, I'm not so sure. There's been some really good examples of people saying, actually, no, I can see that. There's a vision there. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to show some leadership. I'm going to push that. I'm going to drive it. I'm going to get it over the line. There's been some great examples of people doing that, whether that's in the small claims automation, whether that's in the use of remote imagery to help adjust claims. I think one of the most important things is courage to change, courage to lead, and courage actually to keep going when some people actually say, I'm not sure that's the right thing. It's not about being reckless, but I think it's about being bold. And I think the other thing is, the most important thing as well, those three things around data, the courage to push, is around listening. I think we've got to keep listening to the stakeholders, that's everybody in the market and the brokers, the distribution chain, other experts. Keep listening, because this journey is going to take a little bit of time. So we just need to make sure our knowledge and insights remain contemporary. They may be slightly different after the COVID environment. I think some of the thinking's sharper, more refined. So, Jeremy, I think those are the three things for me. They'd be the data piece, the core of the digitization, culture, and let's keep listening. And clearly from the poll, let's keep communicating. So that'll be my thoughts. Others, I'm sure, will have views.
So that again was Phil Godwin from Lloyd's, just talking about some of the practical challenges. And I just took that clip because I think I agree with him in terms of what needs to be done. Obviously the data piece, you need to put culture around that to make things happen, and you need to actually do things and be bold. I think, but it comes back to the point we were making a few minutes ago after Lee Ellison's talk. It's like, where is that action? There is a disconnect, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I can't disagree with any of this. And, clearly everybody knows, everybody's got the narrative now, because we're hearing repeating phrases and we're seeing things that are effectively coalescing. There's quite a lot of talk still about the idea or the notion that people are resistant to change, and now they're not. I think that's slightly outdated, because I don't get that, particularly in the market now. I just get more that actually things are going to happen and they are happening. So I think that the Lloyd's group, if you like, or the Lloyd's central piece, I think they should really, when they talk about listening, which Phil does rightly, is to start to really get close to those the people with the money, basically, as to where they're thinking, because that could help. It may not be a negative thing, but I don't think they're resistant to change. I think they are going to change.
Yeah, definitely. Which brings us on to our final clip, which is taken from the technology session at the conference. So in this clip, we get a couple of examples of where technology has been used to help the client. And then we also hear from Claire from HDI, who talks about the implications for the London market in using technology. So here's a clip.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jeremy, it's probably worth just starting by explaining what our vision at Zurich is. And I mean, to be honest, it's pretty simple, really. I mean, fundamentally, we want to put our customers at the center of everything which we do and to get as close to them as we possibly can. And at a group level, our aspiration is to be a technology company that sells and services insurance in a world-class way. From a claims perspective, you know, we translate that into, again, something which isn't rocket science, frankly, but we, again, want to have a vision that from a claims perspective puts the customer at the center of everything we do, and we want them to have a claims experience that's as painless as possible. And we facilitate that through our claims commitment, but ultimately it's achieved by a combination of, you know, technical expertise on the higher value, more complex losses, a choice around communication and relationships, and then obviously technology, which is what this session's about. To have got to this point, we've gone through, and I've talked about it previously at other TIN events, but we've gone through a pretty rigorous transformation program, which hasn't always been enjoyable. But for the past couple of years now, our approach very much has changed, and the language has changed to it being around evolution as opposed to transformation. And the purpose of that really has enabled us to be able to respond in a much more agile way to the opportunities which have presented themselves. And we're now able to, you know, proactively lead on certain things and react more quickly to others. So, I mean, just to give you an example of a couple of things which we've achieved over the last few months. But the first one was very much from a proactive perspective. And in the space of 8 weeks, we've built the Zurich Claims Portal. And that was ultimately to look at rapidly building on the success of our electronic first notification of loss portals that we have within our property, motor and casualty claims operations. But this was designed to handle a very large volume of low value claims in the event that Zurich's wording, which formed part of the FCA test case, was found to respond. And what we built was a system which would enable the customer to have submitted their claim, their relevant loss information and the supporting documentation, and the portal would have automatically calculated their business interruption loss, and it would have offered an indemnity payment to a customer, which they could have then accepted, and it would have automatically transferred their indemnity payment into their bank account. We don't need to use this technology that we have built for its intended purpose, and I will not go into the FCA test case other than to say that Zurich's wording was found not to respond. But we're now looking at ways of being able to repurpose this technology within other areas of claims, mainly following, you know, different types of losses which will give rise to large volumes of low value claims such as weather events. And I suppose the second example I'll give you where we've harnessed technology, and again this was done over the course of the last 6 months, so when everybody has been working from home, is where we've used technology again to support our customers in communicating with us as a business. So we've introduced what's referred to as Live Agent, and as I say, over the course of the last 6 months, we've added WhatsApp, text messaging, and also web chat to the more traditional methods of communicating. And really, this is, as I say, this has just given our customers more choice. When you go onto Amazon or you use the services of Uber, you get an amazing customer experience, and we've wanted to try to replicate that within our own business. And there's loads more I could say, but I think it'd also be great to hear the views of Andrew, Claire, and Bart, who no doubt have got plenty of views of their own on this same question. So I'll pause there.
What I'd like to add is what I like about Charlie's 2 examples, which we discussed lots before we came on, is they're properly bold. Normally, we're so good, and I think we've been doing it at this conference for the last couple of years. we kind of know what we want. We know what the customer, we're watching the customer's expectations evolve, but we talk about it a lot. And I'm normally quite the queen of the power of marginal gains. But we just need to take bold decisions. And what you've watched Charlie just explain there is his company had no time. They had to do something very, very quickly around the FCA test case and everything. And you just did something bold, got the company's support, and there it was, it's there. And now I was very glad to hear that he's moving this forward to kind of business as usual. So I really, really hope that we do all move forward and make some very, very bold decisions now and just get on with it rather than complete. Someone spoke earlier about the lots of reworking, I think it was maybe Lee or Phil Godwin, that gets done in this market, but we really need to just make decisions and move forward is what I would say. And I really, really hope lots of other insurers, and I think we can learn a lot from the composite insurers as well and try and bring some of that into the subscription market, even though it is harder, because at the end of the day, it's still all about the customer.
So I thought it was a great clip, mainly because it segued nicely from the two clips we've already shown. But also you heard Charlie Bush there from Zurich, head of property and energy claims, and Claire Constable at the end, who's claims director at HDI Global Specialty. And I think there are a couple of things to take out that. Firstly, there's two practical examples of getting stuff off the ground. It works. And if it doesn't work for a particular area of business, it can be repurposed and used somewhere else. I think that is innovation in action. I think it was quite interesting what he said about the long-term vision for Zurich becoming a technology company. That's quite interesting. A technology company that sells insurance. That's interesting. I suppose it's a little bit like the Amazon. They're a technology company that sells everything, and you kind of think, well, when does Amazon move into the insurance market? So yeah, some really nice points in there just to finish off really.
Yeah, just to pick up a few, I think that the idea of being a tech company that sells world-class services is interesting. I personally find that quite a hard one to understand. But I suspect it pushes your share price up if you say you're a tech business at the moment. So that's not a bad thing to do. But I'm kind of more interested particularly in his the claims portal and the building of something to address an issue. And I think it links to what we were saying earlier on, really, about can Lloyd's really, with that sort of initiative and the speed of that initiative and the drive that clearly and the technological capability to do that, can Lloyd's really catch up? So apart from the fact I had a slightly wry smile that they didn't end up using it and paying all that money out, which is brilliant. But putting that to one side, the fact that they can do something like that, what if they'd actually utilised that? Well, it would have put them ahead of the game in the competitive sense. It would have given them a huge step up to Zurich. And I know Charlie intimates this, that they've had a very sort of checkered history of structuring and transformation in that business. Having said that, I can see their claim services coming up too. So they are clearly doing good things. But, once you start having these things happening, and Claire's right about the bold actions and things, to point to those and to bring them into business as usual. But actually to get them to work and to get them to happen will change everything, because the competitor response to Zurich doing that would have been enormous. They would have that would have changed things completely. So there'll be some trigger like that that'll do it. And I that's why I still get concerned, because Lloyd's is going through a slow process of getting everybody on board and keeping them on board and still talking about that. You don't have to do that. Not as much in your own organization anyway.
Yeah. No.
So it's quite a challenge. And I thought the comms tools as well. It's stuff I've talked about. I think it's interesting that almost all of the things that we've talked about and predicted and forecast are coming to pass now.
It's really good. And it was just reflecting generally on the event. It was a really positive experience. I know it was a bit strange not being in a room full of people and meeting people, but just the fact that people came together. There was a lot of chat in the chat rooms and in the Zoom things afterwards, and I do think despite the situation we find ourselves in, there is a lot of positivity around, and I think it was quite uplifting to be part of that. So I hope everyone had a good day. I certainly did. So that was good.
Yeah, it was a really good event, and it's well done, Jeremy, for doing it and putting it on. You did a great job. I think I think both of us feel that we still want to do events in person in future, and that's it. But there's a lot of parts and aspects of these kind of online events that work really, really well. And they get through a lot of stuff. You get through a lot of stuff in a short period of time in them, don't you?
They certainly. We don't. We normally talk drivel, don't we, for 30 minutes?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Right, we're nearly out of time.
You should have done a wine and cheese event afterwards.
Oh well, hey, watch this space.
On the Zoom.
Yeah, you never know.
You probably had it, and I wasn't invited.
Well, we'll leave that. Move on. Okay, what have you got planned this weekend, Ben? Anything? Or are we in lockdown again? I can't keep up with.
No, we're not in lockdown. I'm cycling this weekend. I'm doing a bit of cycling. Yeah, so it should be all right. I haven't been out for a while, so I'm a little bit worried. I'll be a bit rusty.
I know it was one of the things I took away from Charlie's talk a minute ago. How his bikes and all his cycling paraphernalia he had around his.
I know he was shaming us, wasn't he, with his fantastic gear.
There we are. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm on kid duty, I think. So various kids coming around, and I think it'll be a fortnight weekend, which I do love. So there we.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
Good.
You are down with the kids.
I am, yeah. I bought a PlayStation just to play Fortnite because it was driving me nuts on the computer. But that's just me trying to be.
Yeah.
Right. Good.
And the other thing we're going to have to do is have a poll as to whether you have music on videos or not after my one.
Yeah, maybe we'll touch on that next week. We'll put it out next week to the audience and see what they think, with or without music.
With some music underneath.
Yeah, that's it. Great to see you again, Ben. Thanks ever so much. And
thanks, Jeremy.
See you next week.
Yep, see you next week. Cheers. Bye.
Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap up.